copper and a zinc nail into the dirt on opposite sides of a tomato plant. Touch a voltmeter to both metals. You will read just under 1 volt of steady electrical current generated by the soil itself. No battery, no wires, no power source. Just 2 metals, moisture, and the chemistry of the ground beneath your feet. Within days, the roots of that plant will physically bend toward the copper. Scientists call this electrotropism, a documented biological response where living roots navigate toward electrical charge. The plant is not just sitting in electrified soil, it is seeking it out. That single observation connects a Scottish clockmaker in 1841, a 2,000-year-old Amazon civilization, a forgotten Kentucky farmer who powered lights from buried coils, and a 2023 Swedish lab where seedlings grew 50% larger in 2 weeks. 4 buried secrets. One system that generates its own electricity, waters itself, and gets more fertile every year. And a community of 44,000 people in Pennsylvania has been farming this way for 3 centuries without ever buying synthetic fertilizer. But before I reveal the system, if you are sick of paying for toxic fertilizers, I have put together a free $0 harvest blueprint for you. It reveals 7 zero-cost fertilizers that actually outperform everything you know, and the lazy no-dig method that eliminates weeding permanently. One of my readers used the fertilizer trick inside, and his garden grew double the size of his neighbor's. To get instant access to the blueprint and a weekly forgotten gardening hack, click the first link in the description below, or scan the QR code on the screen right now if you are watching on TV. Just open your camera app on your phone and then hold it against the screen. A yellow button should pop out. Now let me show you exactly how these 4 buried secrets fit together, why mainstream agriculture has never told you about them, and how to stack them in a single garden bed for less than $10. The fertilizer industry is worth over $200 billion a year. The pesticide market adds another $60 billion on top. Both of these industries share one elegant feature: their products run out. You spray, you deplete, you come back next season with your wallet open. That is not conspiracy. That is the business model. A product that permanently solved the problem it claims to address would be a terrible product from a revenue standpoint. And for 80 years, that model has worked beautifully for the companies selling the bottles. Meanwhile, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the Amish have been growing food on the same plots of land for over 300 years. No synthetic fertilizer, no chemical pesticides, no soil depletion. Their tomato plants are fuller, their pest damage is a fraction of what conventional gardeners deal with, and their soil gets richer with every passing decade instead of poorer. They are not fighting nature. They are building soil biology so robust that the plants defend themselves and the ground feeds itself. And the science behind why their methods work connects directly to the electrical secret buried beneath every forest floor on Earth. The story starts with a log, not a fancy one. A dead branch, an old fence post, a chunk of firewood you never got around to burning. In Germany and Eastern Europe, farmers have been burying wood under their garden beds for centuries. They call it Hügelkultur, which translates roughly to mound culture. The technique was popularized by an Austrian farmer named Sepp Holzer, who built these beds at alpine elevations, where most people said farming was impossible. But the practice itself is far older. Farmers across Central and Eastern Europe had been doing it for generations with no name and no manual, just observation. Bury the wood. Watch what grows. The method is simple. Dig a trench or pile logs on the ground. Stack branches, leaves, and compost on top. Cover the whole thing with soil and plant directly into it. Use untreated hardwoods only: oak, maple, birch, alder, or fruit trees that have already started to soften. Never use pressure-treated lumber, which contains arsenic and copper compounds that will poison your soil. Avoid black walnut, which releases a chemical called juglone that kills most garden plants. Cedar and redwood break down too slowly and can stall the process. What happens next is where the story shifts from gardening tip to genuine science. The buried wood begins to decompose. As it breaks down, it absorbs water like a sponge. A single buried log can hold several times its own weight in moisture. During dry spells, that stored water wicks back out into the surrounding soil, keeping roots hydrated without irrigation. Gardeners who build these beds tall enough report that they stop needing to water entirely after the second year. A garden bed that waters itself using nothing but stored rainwater released slowly from rotting wood. No drip lines, no timers, no water bill, just wood, gravity, and patience. But moisture is only the beginning. The decomposition process generates heat. Billions of microorganisms working inside the rotting wood produce thermal energy as a byproduct. The temperature inside a decomposing hugelkultur bed can run several degrees warmer than the surrounding ground. Planting season arrives weeks earlier. Frost-sensitive crops survive longer into autumn. The wood is heating the soil from the inside, creating a microclimate that extends your growing season in both directions without a single watt of artificial energy. And as the wood continues to break down, it feeds an explosion of soil life. Fungi colonize first, sending white mycelial threads through the grain like an underground internet. Bacteria follow. Worms arrive. Beetles and springtails set up shop. The rotting wood becomes a city for organisms that convert dead matter into forms plant roots absorb directly. The bed gets more fertile every year, not less. A hugelkultur bed built with large logs can keep producing for a decade or more. And when the wood finally decomposes, what remains is deep, dark, crumbly soil that gardeners describe as the best growing medium they have ever worked with. But here is what even most hugelkultur gardeners do not realize: that rotting wood is doing something far stranger than holding water and feeding worms. In January 2024, a team at Northwestern University published a study on a device they called a dirt-powered fuel cell. It was about the size of a paperback book, and it worked by harvesting electrons released by bacteria as they digested organic material in soil, the same species of bacteria that colonize buried wood, the same decomposition process that powers every hugelkultur bed ever built. The fuel cell generated 68 times more power than was needed to run its onboard sensors and transmit data wirelessly. It outlasted comparable technologies by 120%. The lead researcher, Bill Yen, stated that as long as there is organic carbon in the soil for microbes to break down, the fuel cell could potentially last forever. Soil-based microbial fuel cells first appeared in 1911, but this was the first to work reliably in real outdoor conditions, wet or dry. Read that result again. As long as there is organic carbon in the soil. What is a buried log? Organic carbon. What are bacteria doing when they decompose it? Releasing electrons. What do electrons flowing through a conductive medium create? Electricity. Your buried wood is not just holding water and generating heat, it is generating electrical current through microbial activity. The soil around a decomposing log is a living battery, and it has been running beneath the feet of every forest on Earth since before humans existed. Now travel 5,000 miles south. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, scientists have discovered patches of soil so black they look like they have been dyed with ink. The locals call it Terra Preta de Indio, dark earth of the Indians. This soil should not exist. The Amazon's natural ground is thin, acidic, and nutrient poor. Tropical heat decomposes organic matter so fast that nothing accumulates. Yet here, surrounded by some of the worst farmland on Earth, are pockets of ground so rich they have been producing harvests for over 2,000 years. Some researchers date the oldest sites to 7,000 years ago. The fertile layer runs up to 6.5 feet deep. Scientific analysis has revealed that these soils contain up to 70 times more black carbon than the surrounding jungle floor. Villagers still mine it today and sell it as premium potting soil in Brazilian markets. For decades, scientists argued about whether this was natural or man-made. Then archaeologists found pottery shards, fish bones, and the unmistakable signature of deliberately produced charcoal throughout the soil. Indigenous Amazonians had engineered it on purpose. They took wood, heated it in low oxygen pits to drive off the volatile oils, and produced charcoal, not ash. Charcoal, a stable, porous, carbon-rich solid that scientists now call biochar. They crushed it, mixed it with kitchen scraps, fish waste, manure, and broken pottery, and worked it into their garden plots over generations. Here's the detail that connects charcoal to everything else in this story. Under a microscope, biochar looks like a honeycomb of tiny tunnels, chambers, and passageways carved into pure carbon. 1 gram of wood-based biochar contains roughly the internal surface area of a small apartment. That is not a metaphor. That is a physical measurement of pore space. Those pores create habitat for billions of microorganisms that break down organic matter and deliver nutrients directly to roots. The pores hold water in sandy soil that would drain dry in hours and improve drainage in heavy clay that would otherwise suffocate roots. But the property that ties everything together is electrical. Biochar carries a strong negative surface charge. Its surface is covered in oxygen-containing chemical groups, carboxyl and hydroxyl groups, that give it what soil scientists call a high cation exchange capacity. In plain language, it acts like a magnet for nutrient ions. Positively charged particles like calcium, potassium, magnesium, and zinc are pulled toward the biochar surface and held there instead of washing away in the next rainstorm. Regular soil lets nutrients leach straight through. Biochar catches them and stores them right in the root zone. And critically, peer-reviewed studies confirm that adding biochar to soil increases its electrical conductivity. You are not just amending the ground with nutrients, you are upgrading it into a better electrical medium. That single property is the bridge between ancient charcoal and what a Scottish clockmaker discovered in 1841. Alexander Bain took a plate of zinc and a plate of copper, buried them about a yard apart in damp ground, and connected them with a wire. The soil produced roughly 1 volt of steady, direct current. He used this current to power the world's first electric clock. His British patent, number 8783, describes every detail. The device ran for months with no winding, no refilling, and no maintenance. Zinc is more reactive than copper. When both metals sit in a medium containing dissolved ions, the zinc begins shedding electrons. Those electrons want to reach the copper. If the two plates are connected by a wire above ground, the electrons flow through the wire and produce usable current. Below ground, the moist soil carries charged ions between the plates to complete the circuit. The soil is not just holding the metals in place, it is the electrolyte. Every dissolved mineral, every trace of salt, every organic acid in the groundwater becomes part of the battery. Within years, telegraph companies across Britain adopted the same principle. They buried copper and zinc plates beneath relay stations and used the soil itself as a return conductor for electrical signals. The earth return method cut the copper wire needed in half. Stations along the Edinburgh to Glasgow Railway ran on current drawn from the ground. Engineers documented that damp soil worked best, dry ground killed the current, and aligning the plates north to south boosted output. But here's the detail that should have launched an agricultural revolution and never did. Telegraph workers and local farmers noticed that grass growing directly above the buried plates was different, darker, thicker, taller. Not by a little. It was obvious enough to spot from a distance. A station master in Yorkshire pointed out a lush green strip running along a buried return line. The grass on either side was ordinary. Above the copper and zinc, the vegetation looked like it belonged in a different climate. The pattern repeated across England and Scotland. Nobody published a paper. Nobody sent a researcher. The observation passed by word of mouth and quietly disappeared. Then a Kentucky farmer named Nathan Stubblefield took the earth battery further than anyone imagined possible. In 1898, he patented what the patent office called an electric battery, an electrolytic coil of copper and iron wire wound around an iron core and buried in damp soil. Stubblefield insisted the device was intercepting electrical energy already flowing through the ground. He used the current to power lights on his farm. On New Year's Day, 1902, roughly 1,000 residents of Murray, Kentucky, witnessed a public demonstration in the town square. He transmitted human voice wirelessly through the ground. 2 months later in Washington, D.C., he transmitted from a moving steamboat on the Potomac River to receivers on shore. Newspapers ran the story nationwide. This was in March of 1902. Marconi had barely managed to send a simple click across the Atlantic just weeks earlier. Stubblefield was already transmitting clear human speech. Then Stubblefield retreated into paranoia, refused to commercialize, and in 1928 was found dead in a shack surrounded by his buried coils. His patent is still on file. The coil design still produces current. The man who proved it was effectively erased from history. So now you have three technologies, each discovered independently, each documented, each buried. Wood that holds water generates heat and feeds a living electrical current through microbial decomposition. Charcoal that rewires soil chemistry attracts and holds nutrients with an electrical charge and persists for centuries without breaking down. Copper and zinc that create a steady galvanic voltage mobilize locked nutrients through electrolysis and draw roots toward the current through electrotropism. And here's the critical insight that makes this more than a history lesson. They are not just compatible, they are synergistic. Each one makes the other two work better. Biochar increases soil electrical conductivity, which strengthens the galvanic reaction. The galvanic current mobilizes nutrients, which the biochar catches and holds. Decomposing wood feeds organic carbon to the microbes that generate biological electricity. Water stored by the wood keeps the soil moist, which keeps both the galvanic cell and the microbial fuel cell running. Remove any one piece and the system works. Combine all three, and you get something that compounds over time instead of depleting. In December of 2023, researchers at Linköping University in Sweden published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that proved something remarkable. They developed an electrically conductive growth scaffold called e-soil and used it to stimulate barley seedlings with a low-voltage current. The seedlings grew 50% more in just 15 days compared to unstimulated controls. 50% in 2 weeks. The stimulated plant processed nitrogen more efficiently, converting it into forms they could use faster. The researchers could not yet explain the full biological mechanism, but the result was unambiguous. Electricity in the root zone supercharges plant growth, and the voltage they used was comparable to what a simple copper-zinc earth battery produces in moist soil. This is not fringe science. Research published in Plant Physiology by teams at Freie Universität Berlin in 2022 and 2024 has quantified how plant roots sense and respond to electric fields. Arabidopsis roots actively redirect their growth toward electrical charge. The response requires the hormone cytokinin and involves complex biological signaling. Roots are not passively pushed by electricity. They detect it and navigate toward it, the same way they navigate toward water. This phenomenon was first observed by the German botanist Julius von Sachs in the 1870s, over 150 years ago. Now let me show you who has been using these principles for 300 years without knowing the scientific names for any of them. The Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, do not buy synthetic fertilizer. They never have. They build soil with compost, cover crops, and animal manure, and they have been doing it on the same plots of land for generations. Their soil is dark, biologically active, and rich in organic carbon, exactly the conditions that maximize microbial electricity and nutrient cycling. They use crop rotation, which keeps diverse organic matter decomposing underground at all times, feeding the microbial communities that generate biological current. They compost with a mixture of plant waste and animal manure, creating a nutrient-dense amendment that, when worked into soil, mimics the function of biochar by increasing cation exchange capacity and holding nutrients in the root zone. The Amish also understood something that an 18-year-old farmer named Kemp proved on 4 million acres of North American farmland. Kemp grew up on a fruit and vegetable farm in Northeast Ohio. His family was the regional pesticide supplier, spraying more than almost anyone around. Yet between 2002 and 2004, they lost upwards of 70% of their primary crops 3 years in a row. Nothing in a bottle could stop it. Then the family rented a neighboring field from a dairy farmer. This field had never been sprayed. They planted cantaloupe across both fields. Same variety, same planting date, same fertilizer. At harvest, 80% of the leaves on the Kemp family's treated soil were covered in powdery mildew. On the dairy farmer's untreated soil, there was zero infection. You could see the line straight down the middle where the two soils met. The untreated, biologically alive soil produced immune plants. The sprayed, biologically depleted soil produced sick ones. Kemp spent 2 years in a public library reading university textbooks on biology, chemistry, and plant physiology. What he discovered was staggering. When a plant has the right mineral nutrition, it achieves complete photosynthesis and converts all of its soluble nitrates into complete proteins. Larval insects and sucking insects like aphids literally cannot digest complete proteins. Their digestive systems are too simple. So when a plant is healthy enough to make that conversion, pests land on it, try to feed, get nothing they can process, and leave. The plant does not kill them. It removes their food source at the cellular level. The pest starves in the presence of abundance. Kemp founded Advancing Eco-Agriculture in 2006, and by 2024 it was advising farmers across millions of acres. The science has confirmed what the Amish understood through centuries of observation. The soil is not just where the plant lives. The soil is the plant's immune system. And when you realize that healthy soil is also an electrical system, the connection becomes even more powerful. Biologically active soil, the kind the Amish have been building for 3 centuries, generates its own microbial electricity, holds nutrients through electrical charge, and guides roots toward resources through electrotropism. They were building electric soil before anyone had a name for it. Now let me tell you what happened to the formal research into this. The British Electroculture Committee was established under the Ministry of Agriculture in 1918. Physicists, biologists, electrical engineers, and Nobel laureates sat on the committee. Their credentials were impeccable. They spent nearly 2 decades collecting field data on how electrical methods affected crop yields. Their reports documented significant gains. Then in 1936, the same year industrial fertilizer swept across Europe, every report was stamped not for publication and sealed in government archives. Only 2 copies are known to have survived. The committee was dissolved without explanation. Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch had cracked industrial ammonia production in 1909. By 1913, the first plant was running. What had once required years of crop rotation or tons of manure could now be delivered in a bag of white crystals. American farmers spent $300 million on synthetic fertilizer in 1945. By 1975, that number passed $3 billion. A permanent solution buried in the ground, a one-time cost with no recurring revenue, had no place in that economy. The market rewarded the disposable, not the durable. Academic citations for earth battery and electroculture research dropped over 90% in the following decades, the exact period when fertilizer revenue was breaking records. One curve was rising, the other was collapsing. No secret memo was needed. The incentive structure did the work by itself. But the soil did not forget. Terra preta sites created before European contact are still fertile today, with zero synthetic input. A 10-year field study confirmed that a single application of biochar continued to improve soil pH, carbon content, and nutrient availability a full decade after application. The effects did not fade. They compounded. Hugel culture beds built with large logs continue producing for 10 years or more, the wood releasing water and nutrients the entire time, the microbial community growing richer each season. Bain's earth battery still produces voltage. Stubblefield's coil design still generates current. The physics, the chemistry, and the biology have never changed. The only thing that changed was who was paying for the research and who controlled the conversation about how food should be grown. Now here is the practical part, the part where you stop watching and start building. I'm going to give you 3 methods, simple to advanced. Each one works alone. Combined, they create something none of them can do separately. Method 1, the buried wood bed. Find dead logs, branches, or untreated lumber. Dig a trench about 2 feet deep. Lay the largest logs on the bottom. Stack smaller branches on top. Add a layer of leaves, grass clippings, or kitchen scraps for nitrogen. Cover with at least 6 inches of soil and plant directly into it. Water well the first season. After that, the wood does the watering for you. One installation. No maintenance, no irrigation after year 2. Method 2. The charcoal layer. Take clean hardwood charcoal and crush it to gravel size. Buy lump hardwood charcoal from a grocery store, the kind without lighter fluid. Do not use briquettes soaked in chemicals. Before burying any biochar, you must charge it. Fresh charcoal is chemically hungry. Its massive surface area will initially absorb nutrients from surrounding soil, temporarily starving your plants. Soak the crushed charcoal in compost tea, worm castings, diluted fish emulsion, or diluted urine. 1 part urine to 10 parts water for at least 48 hours. This loads the pores with nutrients and beneficial microbes, so the biochar starts giving instead of taking. Then work it into the top 6 to 8 inches of your bed at about 10 to 15% by volume. Method 3. The copper and zinc earth battery. Take a 6-inch piece of copper pipe and a single galvanized nail. 1 pair per plant. That is the limit. More is not better. Too much zinc will accumulate in the soil and stress your plants, and excess copper can harm earthworms and beneficial microbes. Push the copper into the soil on one side of your plant and the zinc nail on the other, about 8 to 12 inches apart and 6 inches deep. Moisture completes the circuit. A multimeter should read between 0.8 and 1.1 volts. The current mobilizes nutrients locked in chemical bonds. Roots grow toward the copper through electrotropism. The zinc slowly corrodes and releases zinc ions, which plants need to produce auxin, the master growth hormone. When voltage drops below 0.5 volt, swap in a fresh nail. Now combine all 3. This is what nobody else is showing you. This is the 3-layer system. Layer 1, the foundation. Dig your trench 2 feet deep. Lay the largest logs and branches on the bottom. Use untreated hardwoods. Pack smaller sticks and wood chips into the gaps. This is your water reservoir, your heat engine, and your microbial fuel cell. As the wood rots over the coming years, it will absorb thousands of gallons of rainwater and release it slowly. The microbial decomposition will generate heat from below and produce a continuous trickle of biological electricity. Layer 2, the biochar zone. On top of the wood, spread a thick layer of pre-charged biochar mixed with compost, 4 to 6 inches deep. This is your nutrient magnet, your electrical conductor, and your permanent microbial habitat. The charcoal will not decompose. It will outlast the wood, the copper, and probably the fence around your property. Its enormous internal surface area will catch every nutrient ion. The decomposing wood releases and hold it in the root zone instead of letting it leach into the water table. Its electrical conductivity bridges the gap between the biological current from below and the galvanic current you are about to install. Layer 3, the root zone. Cover the charcoal layer with 6 to 8 inches of your best garden soil, mixed with compost. This is where you plant. Press 1 copper pipe segment into one side and 1 galvanized zinc nail into the other, 8 to 12 inches apart and 6 inches deep. 1 pair per plant. The biochar-enriched soil between them is a superior electrolyte compared to plain dirt. More ions mean better conductivity and lower resistance. The galvanic reaction runs stronger and lasts longer. Nutrients mobilized by the current are immediately caught by the surrounding biochar. Roots grow toward the copper through electrotropism, entering the most nutrient-dense zone in the entire bed. The zinc slowly releases ions the plant needs for auxin production. Without zinc, plants cannot manufacture tryptophan. Without tryptophan, there is no auxin. Without auxin, growth stalls. The zinc electrode is not wasted. It is consumed by the very biology it powers. Every layer feeds the others. Wood powers the biology from below. Charcoal holds the chemistry in place. Copper and zinc drive galvanic electricity through the root zone. Water is stored in the logs and released on demand. Heat radiates upward from the decomposition zone. Nutrients cycle in a closed loop. Nothing leaves. Everything compounds. Track your results. This is what separates experimentation from wishful thinking. Buy an inexpensive refractometer and measure Brix readings on your plant leaves every 2 weeks. Brix measures dissolved sugars and solids, a direct indicator of plant health and nutrient density. Higher Brix numbers mean a healthier, more nutritious plant that is also more resistant to pests. Take voltage readings with a digital multimeter by pressing one probe to the copper and one to the zinc. Photograph your plants beside a ruler every week. Weigh your harvest at the end of the season, and critically, run a control row. Same soil, same water, same sunlight, same seeds, no wood, no charcoal, no metals. Let the numbers tell the story. There is one final detail that makes this system unlike anything else. Terra preta soils in the Amazon have not just persisted, they have grown. Scientists confirm that biochar creates such a favorable environment for microorganisms that the microbial community continually pulls new organic material into the soil matrix. Fresh leaves fall, microbes colonize them, break them down, and incorporate the carbon into the existing biochar structure. The soil builds itself. It gets more fertile every year without human intervention. That is the opposite of every farming systems in use today, where each harvest depletes the ground and demands another purchase. When you add buried wood beneath the charcoal, you feed the system from below, while nature feeds it from above. Carbon enters from two directions. Electricity is generated by both galvanic chemistry and microbial metabolism. Water is stored, heated, and released by the wood. Nutrients are attracted, held, and delivered by the charcoal. It becomes a closed loop, a living engine that rebuilds itself. There is a larger picture here too. When you bury charcoal, you are locking carbon into the ground for centuries. The trees that became that charcoal pulled carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. Pyrolysis converts it into a form so stable it resists decomposition for thousands of years. The ancient Amazonians were not just feeding their families, they were running the oldest carbon capture program on Earth. And it worked. The proof is still in the ground. The Amish understand something in their bones that the rest of us are slowly relearning. There's a German word that runs through every aspect of Amish life: Gelassenheit. It does not translate cleanly, but the closest meaning is something like yielding to the natural order, surrendering the need to control everything, trusting that the system has a balance built into it, a balance designed long before we showed up with spray bottles and quarterly earnings reports. It is not passivity, it is partnership. Build the soil, trust the biology, let the electricity flow. The garden does the rest. No battery runs forever. But a system that rebuilds itself from freely available inputs, rain, fallen leaves, and the chemistry of the ground comes as close to forever as anything in nature can. A buried log costs nothing. A bag of hardwood charcoal costs a few dollars. A copper pipe costs $3. A galvanized nail costs pennies. One installation that feeds itself, waters itself, heats itself, generates its own electricity, and gets stronger every year. The reason this is not taught in every agriculture program is not that it does not work. It is that it works too well and too permanently for an economic system built on annual depletion and repeat purchase. The charcoal that ancient Amazonians buried before the Roman Empire existed is still in the ground today, still producing food. Hugelkultur beds built a decade ago are still moist and fertile. Bain's earth battery still generates voltage. Stubblefield's coil still produces current. The eSoil study proved that electrical stimulation alone increases plant growth by 50% in 15 days. The physics, the chemistry, and the biology have never changed. The patents are on file. The soils are still in the ground. The proof has been growing in the Amazon for 2 millennia. The only variable left is you. The experiment costs less than $10 total. The buried log is free. The charcoal is pocket change. The copper and zinc are hardware store scraps. The science has been documented for nearly 2 centuries, and a community of 44,000 people in Pennsylvania has been proving it works every single growing season for over 300 years. If this changed how you think about what is happening beneath your feet right now, send this to someone who grows things. The best way to unbury forgotten science is to plant it in every garden on the street.
Cheers, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great high times today. Peace.
Oh, here it is, the anthem you begged for. Guess you're finally the star of your own damn downfall.
Oh, here it is, the anthem you begged for. Guess you're finally the star of your own damn downfall.
Fake smiles, fake moves, fake ass life you lead. Swore you were a queen, but you're a peasant I don't need. Can't hold your weight, girl, you fold under pressure. Talk big games, but your vibe's just lesser. Your sex game weak like a ghost in the bed. Move so dead, thought I fucked the undead. Tried to play me, girl, you tripped on the line. Now I'm writing you off, just a waste of my time.
Oh, here's that song you wanted, yeah, it's all for you. Every bitter word, every fact is true. Think you're the victim, nah, girl, you're the cause. I'm the judge, jury, execution, applause.
You wanted this spotlight, now drown in the shame. You're the star of the show, but we burn in your name.
You're self-absorbed, yeah, your world is fake. Mirrors your best friend, but even it hates. Talk about loyalty, girl, you a clown. Dropped you like dead weight, now I'm holding the crown. You love to play victim, but you're the disease. Toxic to the core, bringing men to the knees. Personality trash, yeah, it's written in stone. No wonder you're alone in your self-built zone.
Your laugh's like nails, your words are venom. Your life's a train wreck and I'm just spectating. Oh, here's a song you wanted, yeah, it's all for you. Every bitter word, every fact is true. Think you're the victim, nah, girl, you're the cause. I'm the judge, jury, execution, applause.
You wanted this wrong, but it's all in the shine. You're the star of the show, but we punish your name. Rise up the spotlight. You begged for attention. Now it's here to stay. You're the devil in disguise, but your mask is cliche. Every lie you spoke, every path you burned. Now you're stuck in the ashes. No lessons learned. Don't think you can win. Till you think I break. I built this fire from every mistake.